Chris from the Overhead Athletic Institute. Today we're going to talk about a rectus femoris stretch that we do very often with our throwing athletes. All right, so we're going to do this one in prone. Max is going to lay on his stomach. If they have any lumbar involvement, we would put a pillow under their pelvis. For the sake of the video, we're not going to do that. So we want his one foot to be on the floor. The one we're going to stretch is going to be on the table with the hip at the break in the table by the foot piece. That way we can control the amount of hip extension that we need to achieve this stretch. I would adjust the table so that the leg on the floor is comfortable. You can put a wedge or a towel under his heel to make it more comfortable. All right. The reason we like to do it in prone is it allows the pelvis to be in a posterior pelvic tilt to reduce the lumbar extension and achieve the stretch quicker than if we did it with both legs on the table or in a different position. The reason we stretch it is to improve the hip extension that the pitcher needs on his drive leg during the throw. So what I like to do first, I like to test the hip extension. So I would bring it up until I felt the end feel of his hip. For rectus, I would then take the slack up through knee flexion. What we want to think about, so as I bring the knee into flexion, I'm always looking at what's happening at the lumbar. Is he going into extension of the lumbar because of the anterior tilt in his pelvis? So I bring it up. I want to stabilize the ischial tuberosity, pushing ventral towards the table to keep the pelvis in a posterior tilt. If he doesn't have the towel under his foot, I put my foot under his heel, but since he has that, the more forward the foot on the floor is forward, the more of a stretch he's going to feel. So we want to make sure that foot is forward. I then take the slack up straight, always talking to the patient, asking him what he feels. He should feel a medium stretch. We can then use the contract relax techniques that we use in other videos to reduce the tension and get to that length, get to the true length of the muscle. So I'm going to have Max push his knee into the table and then straighten his leg into my hand lightly. We'd hold that for 5 seconds, relax. I would then ask him, do you still feel a stretch? Is it medium? If it's a little less, we would take up more slack into knee flexion. And then he would continue. We would continue that process. Relax. We would continue this process until he feels there's no change in the stretch and he has a medium stretch. We would then hold the stretch for 30 seconds, followed by reciprocal inhibition where I would have him push his foot up to the ceiling. So I'd say, Max, push your foot up to the ceiling. I would maintain pressure on his leg. The reason I don't have him then bend his leg is because hamstring usually cramps out, and they usually cramp out because we have the knee bent at a 90 or more. With this stretch too, we can also play with hip internal external rotation. So in this position, we can bring it into hip internal rotation, always keeping in mind the pathology of the hip, so making sure he's not like has a labral tear or anything like that, and that'll increase the stretch for the patient. And then hold relax with knee into the table. He can kick into my shoulder or push into me into external rotation. If you want to achieve more psoas, just pure psoas, we can achieve it just through hip extension. So it's tough with bigger guys. Sometimes you need a tech to help hold, but you can control it either with your arm or with the headpiece of the table. And then gliding the femur anteriorly, so you're getting a little anterior mob of the hip, plus taking the slack up through the table. This would be straight. And then hold relax would be kicking into the table, reciprocal inhibition being kicking his leg up to the ceiling.